Hey everybody, Will here back again with the weather, and in today's video we're going to focus on yet another significant severe weather threat for parts of the central United States into the mid-south. I'll show you guys the timing, impacts, and everything you need to know. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so first things first, we're going to take a look at the severe weather outlook for Tuesday afternoon. This event is really going to happen mainly in the late afternoon into the overnight hours. There's currently a large slight risk in place anywhere from parts of western Missouri all the way down into north central Texas. There's also a marginal risk outlining that from anywhere from Iowa down into parts of south central Texas. In this darker green area, isolated severe storms are expected, and in the slight risk, more scattered severe storms are expected, meaning that there could be a few more severe thunderstorms in this yellow area. Taking a look at the threats, tornado threat is going to be highest in parts of central Oklahoma down into north central Texas. Some cities in that higher risk are Dallas, Fort Worth, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Arlington, Texas. In this green area, there's still a lower threat for tornadoes. However, they should be much more isolated if they even do occur. Cities in this area are Garland, Mesquite, Texas, Waco, Abilene, and Killeen. The biggest threat, of course, is going to be the damaging wind threats. Much of central and eastern Oklahoma, parts of southeastern Kansas, and a lot of north central Texas are all under the gun for damaging winds. Again, anywhere from Dallas to Oklahoma City, even Kansas City, and anywhere in between, you guys could all see damaging winds. Large hail is also a threat, however, it is not as widespread. Anywhere from southwestern Iowa all the way down into central Texas, Oklahoma City, you're under the gun, Kansas City, Wichita. You guys could all see some large hail with this. And this is all going to happen in the afternoon into the evening hours into the early overnight. And this is all going to happen in the late afternoon hours into the overnight. And it's going to spread to the east as time progresses. I'll show you guys more timing on this in just a second. But first, we're going to take a look at Wednesday's severe threat. This is an even higher risk for many areas. This could potentially be a severe weather outbreak. We have a slight risk in place for a very large area, much of Arkansas, parts of eastern Texas, much of Louisiana, all of Mississippi, much of western Alabama into central Alabama, as well as parts of western Tennessee. All of these areas could see scattered severe thunderstorms with the threat of large hail, damaging winds, and maybe even an isolated tornado. We do have a corridor of higher probabilities though. We have an enhanced risk for parts of southeast Arkansas, much of northeast into central Louisiana, much of central Mississippi, as well as parts of western Alabama. And in this corridor right here, damaging winds are the biggest threat, but there's going to be a lot of spin in the atmosphere too, and there could be a few tornadoes embedded along this line. The Storm Prediction Center is also noting that there could be a moderate risk somewhere in here. However, we're waiting to see if supercells are going to form. There's going to be a big squall line with the main damaging wind threat, and if supercells do form out ahead of this line, the environment is conducive for tornadoes. We're going to have to wait and see if these do develop. That is the main question right now. Anyways, here's a look at the threats. Again, there is a slight risk with a little bit of a lower risk. However, severe thunderstorms are still possible. This red area right through here is where severe thunderstorms are more likely. Jackson, Mississippi, Tuscaloosa, Monroe, Louisiana, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and Alexandria, Louisiana. You guys are all some cities in this enhanced risk. If you see this hatch risk right here, this is where significant damaging winds could be possible in excess of 75 miles an hour. Hurricane force winds possibly. Again, some cities in this hatch risk: Jackson, Mississippi, Monroe, Louisiana, Hattiesburg, Alexandria, Meridian, Mississippi. You guys could all see significant damaging winds. And there could even be some tornadoes. However, that is the biggest question right now. Like I said, if supercells form or not, and I'll explain to you guys why that is in just a second here. Alrighty, so now we're going to switch over and take a look at the models. As you can see right here, the date and time is above my head. This is for Tuesday at 9 p.m. So this model has storms developing later in the day. And this is for Tuesday. And you can see as we go toward midnight, storms start to fire in parts of North Texas and central Oklahoma. You can see right through here is where the severe weather threat is going to be the greatest. Large hail, damaging winds, and maybe even a spin-up tornado or two are possible. And as we get into the overnight hours, it's going to press off to the east, and it's going to weaken a little bit overnight. But as we get in tomorrow during the daytime, this is at 8 a.m., it's starting to move into eastern Texas, western Louisiana, and parts of western Arkansas. These storms should be weaker around this time due to loss of daytime heating overnight, but during the afternoon, storms should start to re-strengthen as instability increases. And you can see as we go toward noon on Wednesday, this line pushes off to the east and it starts to strengthen. By 1 p.m., this line is going to be through parts of Arkansas in west central Louisiana and pushing off to the east. Damaging winds are going to be the biggest threat with this. However, you could see these cells right out ahead of this. And if these develop and are able to stay ahead of the line and take advantage of the favorable environment, tornadoes are possible. You can see as we go into the afternoon, as the atmosphere warms up, this line really strengthens as it pushes toward Mississippi. And with very strong winds about a mile above our head, these storms are going to help to bring that wind down to the surface, and very strong damaging wind gusts are possible. And the biggest question remains, are supercells going to develop in this area out ahead of the line? Right now, models aren't really showing it, but it is still a possibility. And the reason for uncertainty on this is because of a cap. Basically, it's this layer in the atmosphere that stops storms from developing, and that could inhibit supercells from forming. We'll have to wait and see on that. But these storms back here, this line is right along the front, and the front is causing those storms to pop through that cap, and then they go up and develop. So we know for a fact that this line's going to be here, but we don't know if supercells are going to develop. We're going to have to wait and see, and it really depends on the small details, which we'll find out as we get closer to this event. Another thing worth noting is that the timing of this line could change a little bit. Models show this at 3 p.m., but the line could be a little bit ahead up here. It could be back here. It just really depends on the speed of this low pressure system up here. If it slows down, storms will be back to the west. If it speeds up, storms will be off to the east and more of Mississippi. However, timing right now looks to be from 9 to midnight across this area, overnight through this area and weakening, and then around noon to 3 p.m. in this area as storms re-strengthen due to the sun coming out and warming the atmosphere a bit. And of course, this area right here is where that highest risk is, and that's where storms look like they will be the strongest. As we move into the later afternoon, this shifts into Mississippi and eventually moves toward Alabama, where it begins to weaken into the evening and overnight hours. This model does show some cells developing back in Arkansas. If these do form, these are going to have to be watched for large hail, because this colder air aloft is going to surge in, and right above the surface, temperatures are going to be a lot colder, which will help with hail forming. We'll have to wait and see if these storms actually develop, but it is something to keep an eye on. Another big story, there's going to be some heavy snow across parts of Nebraska into South Dakota, up through parts of Iowa into Minnesota. These areas could see a couple inches of heavy wet snow, and there could also be some snow across parts of Colorado. However, our big story here is going to be the severe weather threat. If we take a look at the instability, you can see on Tuesday afternoon into the evening, there's a decent amount of instability across parts of Kansas and Oklahoma, and that's where those storms are going to begin to fire up. And as we move into the overnight and as they push to the east, you can see that instability really starts to go down due to the loss of daytime heating. And then as we go in tomorrow morning, as the sun comes up, instability starts to increase once again across parts of Louisiana into Mississippi, and this will help aid in the development of severe thunderstorms. Now, if we get more instability out here ahead of the line, that's really going to help supercells develop, if they do. And like I said, that's just something that needs to be watched. Anyways, that's going to wrap up today's video. If you live in this area right here, be prepared for severe weather on Tuesday afternoon into the overnight hours. And if you live in this area down here, be prepared Wednesday morning into the afternoon, and then into the evening as you move toward western Alabama and eastern Mississippi. Severe weather is looking likely. Damaging winds are the biggest threat right now. However, if those supercells look like they could develop, which is a possibility, I'll release another update talking about that and the threats. But what we do know right now is a powerful line of severe thunderstorms are going to move through, with a big time damaging wind threat, and there could even be some large hail. And like I mentioned, there'll be some heavy snow on the northern side of this system, as well as sleet and ice as we get into Tuesday evening and Wednesday afternoon. This is a pretty dynamic system. There's very strong winds aloft, and this will result in severe weather in a lot of areas once again. So that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe for more weather information. I'll have another update coming out in the next day or two, going over the newest data. But for right now, that's about everything I got on this. So be prepared if you live in these areas that are under the severe weather threat, and be sure to have a way to receive warnings. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.